The Texas Longhorns had 3 first-round picks in last week's NFL draft. Could they have even more in next year's NFL draft? I think they can. I'll tell you why on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro!
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You were locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin native, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your Longhorn friends about Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. The Texas Longhorns tied a school record with 3 first-round picks in the 2025 NFL Draft. The only other time they've had 3 go in round 1, you got to go back 45 years to 1980. So the Longhorns just did something they haven't done in nearly a half a century. Could they do it again next year? Seemingly lofty based on that. But I think the Longhorns could do even better next year. I think Texas has a chance to break a school record for the most first-round picks in a single year that they've ever had in 2026. Now, in saying that, I think most of you, myself included, don't want it to happen because one of the guys who would very likely be one of those first-round picks is Arch Manning. And most Longhorn fans are hoping we get multiple seasons of Arch as this team's starting quarterback. Again, I'm in that category too. But if Arch lives up to the hype and he ends up winning the Heisman or at least coming close, and Texas ends up winning a national championship or at least comes close, I don't think it's the most far-fetched thing in the world to think that he could leave. Now, I've been told that the plan has always been for Arch to be here for 4 years, meaning he's got 2 seasons of college football left, and technically he's got 3 years of eligibility remaining in college football. So we'll see. Again, that was the initial plan. At least that's what I was told. But if Arch Manning balls out next season and again is competing for the Heisman Trophy and has the Longhorns competing for their first national championship in 20 years, and it appears that Arch is kind of a lock to be a top 5 pick. Maybe he's a lock to be the first overall pick in the 2026 draft. As much as I would love for him to come back, because that means he's playing really well if all of those things happen, you got to admit that there's at least a smidge of a chance that Arch could be gone. So he's number 1. Who else could join him? Well, I referenced this on yesterday's show. There was a way too early 2026 mock draft from our friends at CBS Sports that had 4 Longhorns going in the first round. Arch Manning was the first overall pick. How about Anthony Hill, the 3rd overall pick? CJ Baxter and Manny Muhammad were the other 2 mentioned on that CBS mock. Anthony Hill is a lock to go in round 1. He's draft eligible for the first time after the 2025 season. Another guy that you would love to have back for his senior campaign, but I've got a hard time thinking that that's going to happen, right? Arch Manning's going into his first year as a starter. Anthony Hill has been a starter pretty much from the first day that he stepped foot on campus. I'll never forget that guy's second career college game on the road at Alabama, where he was tasked with spying Jalen Milroe, who's one of the best weapons in college football. And this is 2023 Jalen Milroe, mind you. He was pretty damn good and a tough guy to stop. And Anthony Hill had a couple of sacks in that game and just was all over Jalen Milroe in that Alabama offense on the road in Tuscaloosa. He made a name for himself very early on, and he's continued to make a name for himself pretty much every Saturday that he has strapped them up and set foot on the field, excuse me. It'd be great to have him back for one more year, but I have a hard time thinking it's going to happen. So enjoy Ant Hill while you have him. Not only do I think he's a lock to be a first-round pick next year, I think he could be a top 10 pick next year. Again, CBS Sports has him as a top 3 pick next season. I'm fascinated to see what Ant Hill does for an encore. I think he has a very good shot to be a preseason All-American going into the year. More importantly, I think he has a shot to be a postseason All-American when the year is all said and done. he's a monster. He's been a monster for a long time. And yeah, I expect him to go very high next April. So those are the two guys that are like first round locks for me. The other candidates, again, CJ Baxter and Manny Muhammad were the two mentioned in this CBS draft. CJ Baxter is interesting. We are talking about a guy who was the number one running back recruit in America coming out of high school in the class of 2023. And the Longhorns have been sending running backs to the league at will over the last few years. Obviously, you had Bijan Robinson go in round one, but Jaden Blue and Jonathan Brooks and Roshan Johnson and Keelan Robinson and all of those guys have been drafted over the last couple of seasons. So it's not crazy to think that CJ Baxter is going to get drafted. I think whenever his college career is done, he's a lock to be a draft pick. But can he do enough coming off of a torn insert CL here to play his way into the first round at a position that is tough to get selected in the first round? I don't think it's impossible. I mean, CJ Baxter showed us a lot. His freshman year in 2023, he had 659 yards on nearly 5 yards a carry. He beat out Jonathan Brooks in fall camp going into the season. Now, turned out to be the wrong decision from the coaching staff because Jonathan Brooks was better, but goes to show you this coaching staff was very high on CJ Baxter. And again, the number one running back recruit in America coming out of the state of Florida a couple of years ago. This guy has the talent. He's got the potential. And if he puts it together, I think it might be tough because Quintravion Wisner is this team's number one running back, and you've got Jarrett Gibson and a few other guys in that tailback room. So I don't know if Baxter is going to be able to put up the numbers that it may take to be a first round pick. But hey, crazier things have happened. And again, the Longhorns are doing a tremendous job developing tailbacks and turning them into NFL draft picks. I know Tashard Choice is gone. I don't think that trend is going to stop. So could CJ Baxter be the guy? Could Manny Muhammad be the guy? Look, Manny Muhammad had a really bad college football playoff. He got exposed in the second half against Cade Klubnik and Clemson. He got exposed against Arizona State. I mean, Cam Scadaboo completed a pass against it. Like, it was a rough end to 2024 for Manny Muhammad. Don't get it twisted. Manny Muhammad was magnificent in the regular season. He graded out as one of the best corners in college football in the regular season. Now, again, playoff games mean more. Those were two of the toughest teams that Texas played. Obviously, you throw in the Ohio State game as well. Like, it fell apart for Manny Muhammad, but more often than not, he was really good as the corner opposite Jahdae Barron last year. If he could be that guy for the entirety of the season and the postseason this year, then he absolutely could be a first-round pick. Not the tallest guy in the world. He's 6 feet, but he is taller than Jahdae Barron, who, of course, just went in the first round to Denver. And Manny Muhammad, a high 4-star, started since his true freshman year. If he re-puts it together with Dwayne Akina now coaching him up, then I think he's got a shot to be a first-round pick. Do not sleep on Manny Muhammad. I am big on the Manny Muhammad hype train. I might be the conductor of that thing. And it's not the craziest thing in the world to believe that he's got a shot to go on night one of next year's NFL draft. Again, he's got to be better than what he was at the end of the year, but he's shown me enough over the 2 years he's been in Austin that he is capable of locking down some really good receivers. Now he's going to have to go up against more number ones this season. So there's another example. Now a couple of guys that CBS didn't mention. I think Trevor Goosby has a really good opportunity in front of him. And you think of the job he did filling in for Kelvin Banks, who, of course, just went 9th overall to the Saints. Like, when Trevor Goosby came in the A&M game, there was no drop-off at all. No disrespect to Kelvin Banks. Y'all know how I feel about him. But Goosby more than held his own on the road against a very, very good A&M defensive front that just had a couple of guys drafted last week. And then Goosby played pretty well against Georgia. And then he played pretty well at right tackle coming in for Cam Williams against Clemson when he got hurt. Goosby's a redshirt sophomore, so this is year 3 for him. Man, like, if he is the guy that he was late last year, kind of the opposite of Manny Muhammad, if he does that for 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 games, however many Texas plays this year, he's going to be a first-round pick. He's 6'7", 315 pounds. He's got the size. Again, the sample size is small, but what he showed was enough for me to believe he at least could be in that discussion next year. I think Trevor Goosby might be behind Arch Manning and Anthony Hill for me as like the most likely first rounder on this roster. next year. A couple more names, and obviously I want to hear from y'all. If you're tuned in on YouTube, comment below with your thoughts. Let me know if I missed anybody, and let me know who you think could be a first-round pick from this squad next year. DJ Campbell, former 5-star recruit. He plays guard, kind of tough to be a first-round pick at that position, but the Cowboys, they just drafted Tyler Booker, number 12 overall, so it's not impossible. We see usually one, if not two, guards go every year in round one. TJ Campbell's got some work to do, but again, the 5-star billing, if it all comes together for him, then he could be in that discussion. Maybe Jalen Gilbo. He's doing what Jahdae Barron did, moving from the nickel to an outside corner spot. Can lightning strike twice in the same spot at the same position for Texas? Again, I don't know. Jalen Gilbo wasn't as good as Jahdae Barron was before making that move, but hey, maybe Gilbo, who's gotten rave reviews from Steve Sarkisian throughout spring practice, maybe he can be that guy. So those are a few names. But again, could it happen? Could Texas have 4 in the first round next year? Yeah. I think they have 5, 6, 7 guys at least in the discussion right now. I'm hoping Arch Manning comes back. So if it's 3, not Arch, then okay, sign me up for that. But if he goes, then that could be the guy that puts Texas over the top and gives the Longhorns their school record for most first-rounders in one year. Fun time. These are fun conversations to have. After there were years where Texas had 0 players drafted in 7 rounds, now we're talking about maybe 4 guys go in 1 round. Yeah, I'll take these discussions any day of the week. All right, speaking of Texas football, Steve Sarkisian met with a small group of media down in Houston yesterday. He talked about a few different things, including his decision to add 5 defensive linemen in the transfer portal this offseason. We'll let you hear his rationale coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of all of the action without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast. They make it easy to get your playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. And prices on the Game Time app actually go down as tip-off gets closer. Their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. And it's not just NBA playoffs. It's all the sports, it's concerts, it's comedy shows, it's theater. You name it, they've got it. The best part, the all-in pricing. No surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay every single time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download that Game Time app, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Steve Sarkisian held an abbreviated availability down in H-Town yesterday ahead of his speaking engagement he had at the Houston Touchdown Club. Sark talked about a number of different topics, and we'll have sound from that throughout the course of the week right here on Locked On Longhorns. Your team every day. I think I just said that. But I wanted to start with this cut today. Of course, the biggest priority for Texas in the transfer portal was defensive line. The Horns brought in 3 D linemen in the winter portal window with Cole Brevard, Travis Shaw, and Hero Kanu. And then they added 2 more in the spring window a couple of weeks ago. Levon Johnson from Maryland, Murad Watson coming in from Syracuse. So 5 players at one position, making up half of the entirety of the Longhorns 2025 transfer portal class. Steve Sarkisian was asked about those defensive tackle additions and why he feels like that position, was so important to address.
But like anything, when you look at us when it comes to the portal, like we're trying to fill needs, and for a variety of reasons, we've had some real attrition at the defensive line spot. Like I said, for a variety of reasons, certain players aren't here anymore, and you have to get your numbers right. When you think about where my mind is at, I'm thinking about 16, 17 games again, and having the right amount of depth on the defensive front is critical for us to play the style of football that we want to play. And I thought we've done a really nice job of addressing needs on the defensive front, not only in the winter transfer portal, but obviously here in the spring to go along with some of our young players as they continue to develop. I think it's going to be a nice combination of players that is going to allow the rest of that defense to play the style of defense that we want to play.
So there's Coach Sark, and I agree with everything that he had to say. And he talked about the attrition that Texas had in that defensive line room. The Longhorns lost 7 scholarship defensive tackles from a year ago. 3 guys went to the NFL. 2 of them were drafted with Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. Bill Norton is the other one who got picked up as a UDFA. Congrats to all 3 of them. And then 4 Texas players left via the transfer portal. So I don't care what position it is. If you lose 7 players in 1 month, you got to do something to address it. And it was clear that Texas had to do something. And again, it was the top priority for the Longhorns in the portal. The Longhorns only had 2 returning scholarship players at defensive tackle. It was Alex January and Melvin Hills III. Those guys combined for 1 tackle in 2024. So, of course, you just needed bodies. 2 is not going to be enough, but you also needed some guys who had done a little more than that at this level of football. And, Cole Brevard's a guy with more than 1,000 snaps under his belt. Travis Shaw is going into his 4th year of college football, coming in from North Carolina. Murad Watson was a freshman All-American, one of the leading snap getters on that Syracuse defense this past season. You got numbers, but you also got quality and experience as well, which are things that Texas just did not have on the defensive front at the start of the offseason. And the Longhorns, I mean, just look at the draft the last 3 years. Texas had 5 defensive tackles selected in the last 3 drafts. They've had 4 of them picked in the last 2 years, and 3 of those 4 went in the top 45, with Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy going in the top 40 last year. And I think Alfred Collins was picked 42, 43 to San Francisco in the 2nd round this year. So those guys were hugely important to the success of this Texas defense. Texas had a top 10 run defense in the country the last couple of years, which has made life so much easier for everybody else around the University of Texas. We talked about Anthony Hill and the job he's been able to do moving from edge to off-ball linebacker. A lot of his success can be attributed to just the fact that the guys in front of him were getting their jobs done, eating up blocks, and the offensive linemen on the other team were not able to push their way to the second level. So Anthony Hill had free run to do what he wants and needs to do in the middle of this Longhorn defense. You have to have great defensive line play. I know I'm a broken record when it comes to saying this, but it's no coincidence that Texas football's 2 best seasons in the last decade and a half have come when it's had its best 2 years of defensive tackle play in the last decade and a half. And you need NFL talent. I don't know if you have any top 50 draft picks on this year's squad. Maybe guys will develop into that. I don't know if you have any 2026 super high draft picks at defensive tackle, but you cannot have a big drop off at that position. And that position can't be a weakness. And again, 3 or 4 months ago, when the 2024 season came to an end, you're looking around and you're like, uh-oh, this could be a problem. Now you're looking at it right now. And, I don't know if it's a strength of the team just because we haven't seen most of these guys in burnt orange and whites, but I don't think it's a weakness anymore. That was the obvious answer to what's the biggest question mark for this Texas defense before the portal started. Now, that answer's not that obvious. I think Texas is really good in the secondary. We had the sound last week. Sark thinks the secondary might be the best position unit on this team. You've got Anthony Hill, Leon Galafau, Brad Spence, Trey Moore at linebacker. You've got some great players coming off the edge with Colin Simmons and Ethan Burke and the aforementioned Trey Moore. Also Colton Vasek there too. Texas is in a great spot, not only now, but also in the future across the defense, but especially on the defensive line, because Justice Terry's going to be a monster down the road. I think Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles, 2 4-star early enrollees, could be really good down the road as well. And then Murad Watson, only going into his 2nd year of college football. Hero Canu's got a couple years of eligibility left. I think Travis Shaw has a couple years of eligibility left. You've got guys who not only are going to help this team win this fall, they could help this team win in future falls. And I don't think Texas is going to need 5 D tackles in the portal next year. They did enough this offseason building for this year and for next year and the year after that to where, they shouldn't have to, in case of emergency, break the glass again, kind of like they did this year. But I think they did about as good of a job as they possibly could have done. And you heard it from Sark. That was an important position. That was their biggest need. And they did everything they could to address it. And it went from an obvious weakness to something that could be really, really good for this Longhorn defense this season. All right, let's shift gears here. We got one segment to go on today's show. It's Texas and it's A&M again at the Dish. We will preview another huge game for Texas baseball against A&M coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs have arrived, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. How about this deal? When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's it. You place a $5 bet, it hits, boom, $250 in bonus bets coming your way. FanDuel makes it so easy to join and so easy to bet, whether you're picking your favorite teams, you're doing player props, you're doing live in-game betting, you're doing same-game parlays. The options and possibilities are endless. So download the FanDuel app or head over to the website, FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, don't miss out. FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. It's Prairie View A&M tonight at the Dish. If I got you with that one, thank you very much. The Longhorns hosted the other A&M over the weekend. Now they host the other A&M at the Dish tonight. All three wins against Texas A&M came by one run in that thrilling sweep of the A&M Aggies over the weekend. Tonight's game should be decided by more than that. Prairie View is not good. They are 11-31 on the season, about 3-17 in true road games this year. Some of the midweek opponents that Texas has faced have been pretty competitive record-wise and in their respective conferences. That is not the case with the Prairie View A&M Panthers. They are sub 500 in their league. Again, the record kind of speaks for itself. They are having a very down year. So, look, Texas has lost a couple of midweek games. They've won a couple of very close midweek games. I don't want to say you should take an opponent lightly, but you compare Prairie View A&M to UTSA, Sam Houston, Texas State. It's not the level of ball club that Texas has seen in some of these Tuesday games. So what does that mean? Well, it means it should be an opportunity to give some of the starters the night off. It's been a long year. You're nearing the end of what has been a long regular season. You've got 11 games remaining, and you've got a very important stretch coming up to close out the regular year. You're trying to hold on to a top 8 national seed. Obviously, you're trying to hold on to the number 1 ranking in the sports. You're trying to hold on to a 5-game lead and win the SEC with 3 series to go. 2 of those 3 series are against rivals. You've got at Arkansas Thursday to Saturday, and then you've got a trip to Norman, Oklahoma to round out the year, 3 weeks from now. You need your guys fresh. You need your guys good to go when you go up against the best competition you've got on your schedule. And again, try not to disrespect Prairie View A&M too much, but they are not that. And oh, by the way, you've had some bad injuries this year. I'll knock on wood that nobody else goes down, but you're already playing without your best player in Max Ballou and your Friday night starter in Jared Spencer. We know Spencer's done. Ballou's out for the regular season. We'll see if he can maybe come back at some point in the postseason, but you do not want to lose any of your other big bats or big arms in a game like this. You should be able to beat this Prairie View A&M team with guys like Rylan Galvan and Kimball Schuessler and Will Gasparino and Jalen Flores, getting some time off. You think of Ethan Mendoza. He's been DHing because of the shoulder injury. If you want to give him a night off, maybe tomorrow's the night. A-Rod, Adrian Rodriguez has dealt with an injury. If you want to give him a night off, tonight is the night. Galvan's the guy I look at the most because he's the catcher. I mean, that's the most physically taxing position on the diamond. And you get the chance to give him a night off on what should be a pretty warm springtime day here in the 5-1-2. Yeah, I would try to keep Rylan Galvan off his feet or out of the squat, if you know what I mean, for tonight's game if you can. And look, maybe you can't bench everybody or you don't want to bench everybody. Maybe you give these guys half days off, right? You let them play the first 3, 4, 5 innings. Hopefully the Longhorns have this game kind of in hand at that point. And, you can swap some guys out, put some younger guys in. That's what this game tonight should be. It's an easy opponent. It's at home, and you've got bigger fish to fry. Starting on Thursday, it is another short week for Longhorn baseball. It's another Thursday to Saturday series. You're on the road at an Arkansas team that's been struggling. They've lost 3 straight SEC series, I think for the first time since 2007. This is a Hogs team that was number 1 in America. Remember, it was Arkansas 1, Texas 2 3 weeks ago. And then, the Longhorns have gotten even hotter, and Arkansas is had some water poured on his Flames recently. The Hogs, that's going to be a crazy atmosphere in Fayetteville. Y'all know how much Arkansas hates Texas. And again, it's an Arkansas team that's pretty desperate right now to get things back on track. So make sure you're fresh and ready to roll when you make that trip up to Fayette-Nam. No surprise, Texas still the number one team in America with all the polls that came out yesterday. The Longhorns went 4-0 for the second consecutive week as the number one team in the country. And this is kind of cool. I don't know how much y'all care, but I think it's kind of cool. LSU is the number 2 team in the D1 baseball top 25. LSU is 36-9. Texas is 37-5. So the Longhorns 4 games up in the loss column against the number 2 team in America. And Texas also leads LSU by 5 games within the conference. And of course, Texas took 2 of 3 against LSU. So look, you don't want Texas to lose any series. You really don't want them to lose one to Arkansas. Texas, the only team in the conference that has yet to lose a weekend set. But if Texas does drop 2 of 3 this weekend, part of me thinks they're so far out in front of number 2 and everybody else that they probably stay as the number 1 team in the country. Again, you don't want to find that out. You don't want to test fate here. And I'm about to throw up just from talking about Arkansas beating Texas. I'm sorry for even speaking that, but that's just how much distance I think Texas has on everybody else right now. There's only one ranked team in the D1 baseball poll this week that has fewer than 9 losses. That's West Virginia. I should say one besides Texas, one other ranked team. That's West Virginia. West Virginia is also 37-5. And they're ranked way down at number 16. Their strength of schedule is terrible. Their RPI is not very good. Still feel like they should be higher than that. But every other team, 23 of the top 25, all have at least 9 losses. And again, Texas sitting there at 37-5 in year 1 of the Jim Schlossnagle era. Pretty damn cool. Not that you needed any more numbers to tell you how much fun this Texas baseball season has been, but there's another one for you just in case. So it's Texas and it's Prairie View A&M tonight. Hopefully you get the dub. Hopefully some guys get some rest. We'll see who pitches. Cade Bing, Grayson Saunier, not sure. But, yeah, hopefully Texas takes care of business before the trip to Arkansas. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. If you made it this far, number 1, thank you. Number 2, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, rate 5 stars, all of those great things. Appreciate you all making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan throughout all of the rapid changes in college football. Find Locked On the Portal on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll have a game recap from this baseball game and more sound from Steve Sarkisian's Touchdown Club appearance and plenty more. Never a dull moment covering the Texas Longhorns. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.